What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Meet the Zor. If you like these videos, please click subscribe to watch all of our interviews on our YouTube channel. Today, we are talking to Propelled Brands. Coming up. Actually, before Propelled Brands, we're talking Mark. Mark is how we always start these things. So, Mark, and this will be a good story because I know most of it, but how did you accidentally fall into franchising, and what is your franchise story?
Oh, that's funny. Do you know it? I guess I've told it before, and you've done your research, I guess. Anyway, good to see you, Nick. A pleasure to be here. It's funny. I think so many of us fell into it accidentally, right? And I was a banker for a great number of years, thought I would be a banker for my career. Can't say I loved it as much as I love what I'm doing today, but it was the thing to do. And I was vice president of operations for a bank in Connecticut, a small regional bank that was growing like crazy. And one day, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation came in, the FDIC, and shut us down. We had some signs before that. There was some funky stuff going on with some of our board members and didn't know what I was going to do. I was much younger then because I've been in franchising now for 25 plus years. So I took a job at a local coffee shop that I didn't even know was a franchise, the Coffee Beanery, and worked in the local shop for a while. It was owned by corporate. Franchisee bought it. I stayed with the franchisee. And one day I got a call from somebody on Joanne Shaw's team, and they said, hey, you know what? We'd love to have you come to Michigan and talk to us about opportunities. They knew I had done much more than being a store manager in my career. And they offered me at the time was my boss's job, kind of blew me away, which was the director of franchise operations. And I took over that, managing our franchise business consultants, had to relocate from Connecticut, where I'd grown up my whole life, to Michigan, which was a fish out of water for a while. I had not been in the Midwest and was not used to so many friendly, nice people talking to you in the grocery store. We don't do that out East, but that's really how I started my career. And then I stayed there for quite some time and then was promoted to VP of Ops. And I oversaw both company and franchise stores before I left. And then I continued on after that. And you can hear as much or as little more after that you want.
I love that. Go back to you're working at a bank.
Yeah.
And clearly to have a job in finance, you have to have intelligence. Did you understand? I mean, clearly not at the level you do today, but did you understand franchising enough at that point? Or what was the moment where you said, I get it?
Yeah, I think like most people, I understood franchising from McDonald's and Burger King and understood it conceptually. My very first job of my real job life, official job, I guess we say, was at McDonald's. And I was working there when I was in high school, and the franchisee trained me. He happened to be in the store for a few days, and it was this great experience. And he trained me on how to flip burgers and all the basic stuff that you did. And so I think I knew it from a conceptual. I think what blows most people away, and even to this day, I think people understand, is how many industries it was, right? So I knew it from, it's food and maybe it's hotels and it's those type of things. But I don't think I ever knew, or I certainly know I didn't know at that time how broad it was. So I had a basic understanding, but I think like most people, you're a little bit naive to it and you don't always know what it means. You know that the sign on the door is McDonald's, and you don't know what that means to be a franchisee and to operate that business. So I would say limited exposure, knowledge, and like everybody, the go-to is McDonald's. And because I actually worked there during high school, I had some familiarity because I knew it was not a company store; it was a franchise location, and the franchisee had 3 or 4 in Connecticut at that time.
Yeah, obviously today there's a lot of resources for education, but I still think, and I'm always fascinated by that question or that journey, because for someone that's going to become a franchisee for the first time in their life, every franchisor goes to buy my business versus let us educate you on what franchising is. And when all of us zoom out and look back at our own careers in franchising, anybody that's had success in franchising, you go back to the moment, mine was McDonald's. I understood conceptually, but I didn't understand it in detail. And I'm always surprised, like franchisors go to the sale so fast versus the education part, which is probably where the broker community has won, because they're like, let us educate you on what franchising is. And I feel like that's something that us as a community could probably put some work in.
You know, it's a really good point. And me overseeing development for 4 brands, I don't really know that I've thought it that way. You know, as you know, our CEO, Catherine Monson, is very involved in franchising, you know, the chair of the IFA for a number of years. And so we certainly incorporate in our franchise development process videos of her and send them to her YouTubes and stuff. And there's probably some basic fundamentals there. But it's a really good point. We don't necessarily talk about it at the level that we should in the education process. And that probably bites us at some point in the process with some candidates who go, well, I want to do it this way. And it's like, well, no, you're a franchise and these are the processes and the steps. So I think that's a brilliant point on your part, because, you know, as smart and educated as maybe I thought I was, I certainly didn't know it to the degree that any of us know it today. And it frustrates me when I'm in friends groups and they don't understand it either. I have a place in California, and the local Kentucky Fried Chicken shut down. And all of the local, you know, you go into these gossipy Facebook pages and you read the notes and they're like, oh, I can't believe this big giant conglomerate shut down. And, you know, why do they have to make money at every location? And no one really realizing it was probably an individual franchisee that maybe struggled during COVID, whatever it was, but everybody looks at the big name on the door and assumes that that's where it's going, and that it isn't a small independent business person who's creating wealth for their family.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to basically figure out what is the solution. Obviously, in the sales process, and we started filming content with some of the brands that we work with, where I was like, let's do a video that says what's franchising and what is your FDD, because the two things that are very intimidating are the FDD and franchising, period. Yep. I remember IFA did a study. And everything for me at this point in life is 5 years ago. It's probably more like 10 or 15 years ago. But
I think kids do that to you, Nick.
Yeah, right.
I don't have any, but I've seen it through my brother's kids.
Yeah, right. 5 years ago, everything in the world happened. But they did this study and they said, what's the perception of franchising? And there were two things that stuck with me. One was the franchisee is rich. Yeah. And it's interesting, take the KFC scenario. Most people don't understand in the food business specifically, it could be 8% of gross or less that they're taking home. Right. And so that means $1 to that KFC operator is worth 8 pennies. And it's like, that's a lot of work to get 8 pennies.
And not to get political, then you put that in California now with all these extra wages and stuff. Is it really 4 pennies? I mean, is it, you know, that has an impact, and that probably is more attributable to why locations are closing in markets like that versus anything to do with the franchisor.
Yeah, and it's like now the beauty of franchising, obviously, you're not all the startup expenses to open up a small business. Right. You get to shortcut that by becoming a franchise. And for me, I think 5% is a sweetheart deal for all the infrastructure that a franchisee buys. But to the general public, they just don't understand that the dollar is worth less for a franchise owner than it is traditional small business. Another thing was, they're like, I see McDonald's on my check, so I just assume as a paycheck that it's from McDonald's. And it's like, no, this person had to at some point risk everything of their career and their financial well-being to get into franchising. And so coming full circle, it's like when you're getting involved in franchising, you're going to a coffee shop, like all of a sudden, and I think for your background, just purely you going through operations gives you such an upper hand in the rest of the drive of your career. But it's just fascinating to me because, again, like from first time franchisees that don't understand franchising and don't understand how it works, us as an industry goes, so let's sell, but it's like, what's the step before that?
I think it's a brilliant observation. And I'd like to think we do a little better than others, maybe because of our involvement as a company with IFA and we know the importance of it. But you're going to make me rethink that. I want to see that video and maybe share it with candidates, because I think there's something to be said about educating them on what this really means. And, we certainly talk about you're going to be successful if you follow the system, and, and in the sales process, when you get pushback, you sort of say, well, you have to understand you're no longer an independent business now. And then even more complicated to that. And it really creates that angst, I guess, is conversions. You take an independent who operated, which we have a number of independent programs across our portfolio, and convert them. Now it's even a bigger wake up. Some companies won't do it because they feel like the franchisee, they can't make that leap. We've done it successfully, but that is part of that education. You're no longer doing, you'll be able to do a lot of things on your own, but understand you're going to follow brand standards, and a lot of what you used to do and make decisions is no longer optional for you. So,
yeah, I mean, my for what it's worth, my perception with you guys is that, the tools of your leadership team, the tools integrated into franchising are tremendous. So I would imagine once I've decided to give you my name, it is a superior process as even your educational side. It's the ghost that's out there that is afraid to jump off the diving board. How do we get more messaging in front of the ghost to make them feel comfortable with franchising?
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things I require of anybody in our sales team, and really most of my direct reports in the development process, is I want them to have that CFE. If they don't have it when they come to it, we're going to make them do it. We believe in that. It's important. It's the fundamentals of this business. I don't, forget all the legal stuff you have to do with FDD. There's a basic knowledge, to your point, that you get from becoming a certified franchise executive that I think should be a basic for everybody.
Do you think if you reflect back on your career, the fact that you understood how the burgers were made before you understand how to go build the machine that's going to sell those burgers, does that give you a hand up in everything you've done from that point on that you came through operations?
I do. I think it does. It was never an intentional journey, as it isn't for so many. I took on franchise sales when I moved to CCA Global in St. Louis, and hadn't been in the sales side. I had all been operational, being a business consultant, a director of operations. And I will tell you, understanding what your franchisees go through, which you do when you're operational, whether it's making burgers, making signs, renting suites, and pouring coffee, is definitely a perspective of you live a life in their day, and you need to understand what that's like. And so I think it definitely gives me some focus. I think it also helps really make sure that, and my team, I think, is pretty good in this. I'd like to think they are. We talk about it a lot. We're not selling. I don't like the old analogy, we're awarding. Okay, that's great. That's a play on words, and maybe that's what we're doing. But what I really say is it's more about, do they understand the work and the effort that goes into this? When we say this is an owner-operator model, this means you may be hanging signs one day. That's not what we want you to be doing. But you're responsible for everything that happens in those four walls. And so I think the operational perspective is definitely a conversation I have with franchisees. Do you really know what you're getting into? And yeah, it's great to go out and even to the point, Nick, when we take people to see FASTSIGNS and we tour a location in the field, we don't go to the big fancy stores with all the equipment and the big staff. We sort of go to a smaller startup so they can see what they are going to end up with. Then walking into some store that, we have some giant FASTSIGNS out there, 10, 12,000 square feet larger. That could be a little misleading, going, oh, well, I've got a staff for everything. I have all this equipment. It's like, no, you're going to start in 1,200 square feet, and you're going to have a couple of printers, and you're going to outsource some things. And so we like them to, I think, look at it through that lens. Yeah. And one of our franchisees posted this morning, I saw that just opened in Cape Cod, that, when I was a business executive, and he's like, when I bought in this business, I swore I wouldn't be making signs, but here I am because somebody didn't show up making signs. And he understood that was a part of the job. And, that we want him to focus on growing the business. But look, if you're a small business owner, you're going to wear many hats. And in the beginning, you're going to wear more hats than you probably ever expected. And I think the lens of my operational experience gives me that perspective. as we talk to candidates to make sure that they understand that. I don't want to paint a rosy picture. I don't want to sell somebody without them understanding what reality is, and once they put the key in the door.
I'm gonna give you another piece of credit in your background too, because I think this is part of the magic.
You're gonna make my operations. I wasn't expecting all this. I'm waiting for the hammer to drop now.
Pat, I think part of your magic, whether and even the way that you talk, I can hear it, is operations is not just the process of doing things. It's about, here's the expectation of the customer, and this is what they've purchased, and how do you align those two so that the product that they get is aligned with the expectation that they paid for, which I think in the business that I'm in the agency world, it's often missed. And frankly, I didn't understand the importance of that. Like, client pays for X, we have to deliver X, and how do we deliver X? And McDonald's obviously said, look, you're going to get the same burger here that you're going to get somewhere else. And they built that. And so now you cross-apply operations to your business, and which will lead to my question is, you understand, if you've ordered a sign, like the scenario you just gave, franchisee, if you don't have the staff to make that sign and the customer expects a sign by X, you have to go make sure you do that, or else you lose that customer. And that's the magic. It's more like customer service, operationalizing customer service.
Yeah, and it's what I would call, which is a term a lot of people use, especially in the agency side. But if you really break it down, it's the brand experience, right? That franchisee owns the brand experience in that location. And, we at times, we monitor everything from our customer service scores to, their response rate, all of those things. And we have metrics that we share with our franchisees so they can do it. But then our business consultants can do that across our brand, so that we can step in and go, hey, your score's dropping here a little bit, or you're not responding quickly, and things of that nature. Luckily, we have amazing training and amazing team, and that doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And it is important that the name on the door means more than just signs. It's the experience around that. And I think that part is something we know at Propelled Brands, we focus on, we teach, we train, but not everybody looks at it through that lens.
So stay on that for a second. If again, like evaluating or looking at your career, did what you did, because it doesn't matter if it's coffee or it's burgers or it's signs or it's dogs, you operationalize the way that you talk with candidates to help get them into a business and scale. Like, is that the magic? Does a widget matter anymore? Like, it doesn't matter what you're selling. You operationalize how you grow a brand the right way, right?
You're 100% right. And it's sort of the growth of platform companies, right? I had a call from somebody in the industry and goes, I don't understand what you guys are doing. You got dogs, you got hair cutting, you got signs. And it's like, look, we believe the magic at Propelled Brands and our team is all of the things that go into, it's not what you're selling. It's the support, it's the training, it's the measures, it's the KPIs, it's how you build it, what it looks like, the marketing, all of that stuff. And so I think if you really break it down, a franchise isn't all that different, whether it's dogs or renting suites, or in our case, servicing people through NerdsToGo or selling signs. Yes, the end result is different. But what we're really selling is that brand experience. When you go into a FASTSIGNS or a Camp Bow Wow, what is that experience? What does it look like? And I think that the behind the scenes stuff, the glue, and that's where platform companies, as you know, are exploding now, is, hey, if I've got the right real estate people and the right training people and the right marketing people and the right development people, my strengths don't have to be in understanding doggy daycare. They don't have to be in making signs. They have to be in, Catherine always has talked about, and we hear this more and more from the IFA, it's about unit level economics. How do I drive unit level economics no matter what I'm selling, so that the franchisee makes money, can reinvest in their business, and do the things to drive the business? And that's all very different across our brands. Now, there are similarities we look for, but boy, if you looked at this franchise executive, a friend of mine, probably one of yours, I won't mention his name, called me and he's like, I don't get all this all works together, because some people look at it and go, well, Neighborly's easy because it's all home services, right? Ours are not connected like that. But we believe the value is in what we bring behind the scenes in the training and the sales and the marketing and the development and the real estate and all those areas of intellectual knowledge that we've built with our team.
Well, a portfolio company, in my opinion, same for you guys. Like if you look at McDonald's, ice cream doesn't go on burgers. They're both food items, but they don't go on burgers. But what they did is they said, under our umbrella, we're going to have a percentage as ice cream business and here. And the way that we serve our ice cream, the way that the order comes from the customer to the way that we deliver the experience is going to be exactly the same as the way that we make the burger. Yeah. And so with what you guys have done, you franchise the franchise because like it doesn't matter. Brand, right? It doesn't matter. So obviously, and I like my opinion is that franchisees buy on two things. One is the culture of an organization. One is the business model. And obviously, we've addressed a lot of culture on here. What your backstory is, because I always feel you bet on the jockey, not on the horse. And so if I'm going to buy from you guys, I'm going to bet on you. I'm going to bet on Catherine. I'm going to bet on the rest of the leadership team. That the model that's in place is going to help build wealth for me and my family. Yeah. But give me the state of the union with the business, and then if a candidate is watching up to this point, what do you want them to know about it?
So, Propelled started with, I joined the company, I can't believe this, almost 15 years ago, November, when it was just FASTSIGNS. We were a single company. Catherine hired me very much what we talked about earlier. She liked, at the time, my operational background, even though it was a development role, because very much as we talked about, she saw the benefits of that. At some point during my career, I've managed both, but today I sit really on top of our development, which we define as lead to lights on, everything from the sale all the way to getting the doors open, real estate construction, and the magic there. So our first acquisition was in late 20 when we bought NerdsToGo, a small emerging IT brand based in Guilford, Connecticut, which has been a nice add to the portfolio. We loved it because it was B2B. And while people see FASTSIGNS everywhere, because there's 700 of them, they sometimes think we're retail. We're not. We're B2B. We're not really interested in making banners for your kids so much as we want to be selling to other businesses. And so that's a different approach. And that's why we felt Nerds fit us really well. And then in the early 21, when we bought My Salon Suite, people were like, how does that fit in? Well, really, it's B2B also. All we are is a landlord. We're renting suites. What's great about that brand, and then I'll only skip ahead real quick. And then in early this year, we bought Camp Bow Wow, 220 locations, doggy daycare and boarding. I was a customer for many years. I was so thrilled when that one came about. My dog would go to daycare every single day, went to Camp Bow Wow. So it was a thrill for me. And I think that even though today we've steered away from B2B a little bit, our four brands represent some very different things. FASTSIGNS and NerdsToGo are really almost more direct sales organizations. It is focused on the direct B2B customer. It is a great opportunity for people to build wealth there, but they're single unit operations for the most part. As somebody gets into the business, we do have some franchisees that have acquired, but they're continuing to grow. Both have great unit level economics. One's built on reoccurring revenue, which is NerdsToGo, which is a great model for people that you sell it and now you're getting a monthly reoccurring revenue. FASTSIGNS is definitely more direct sales out in the field. Salon Suite is a great business for us because it's non-operational. We have no on-site staff. It is the only brand in our company that our board and our management team wants to open company stores in. Because we believe if I'm going to own a FASTSIGNS, you need to be there. You need to be in the market. You need to be engaged. With Salon Suite, we have no on-site employees. We have a regional manager who works with the tenants, helps lease the spaces, builds relationships, somewhat serves as a property manager when something goes wrong. But there's no on-site person. The door is locked. It's accessible through a secure method. And that has been the magic of that brand. And that's a different candidate, right? That's great for somebody who maybe wants to keep their job and wants to build income on the side. FASTSIGNS, if you want to say, I'm going to be a part-time operator, we won't let you. We won't sell you a franchise if you're not going to be day-to-day engaged. We don't even believe it runs well with managers for the most part. There's obviously franchisees that have done exceptional with that, but that's not really the rule. And then comes along Camp Bow Wow, multi-unit, high investment like My Salon Suite, but way more operational. That's high staffing, high touch, almost a 24/7 business, really, because when you're boarding, you have to be there 24/7. But the magic in that is that's a passion business. That is, you love dogs, you love animals, you love that part of it. But it is a more operational piece. So I love that we have 4 brands that really fit 4 different levels for a candidate to look at it and go, I want to be multi-unit. I want to be I maybe want to not be day-to-day operator. And, it's interesting when you said earlier, it really stuck me. Every time we bought a brand, and then we've went out to our network and we've told them we bought a brand, and we really weren't focused on selling as much. We just advised them. We've got franchisees now that are crossing over. And a lot of it is that confidence in the management team saying, you know what, if you guys are behind this, then I know it's going to be good. I never even thought about a My Salon Suite. We have a FASTSIGNS franchisee. We have 2 FASTSIGNS franchisees that have bought into that network. We have franchisees in Camp Bow Wow that are looking at others. And so it's great to see that a lot of it is the focus on the things we do right, regardless of what the end result is, kind of coming full circle. So that was a very long answer, and I apologize.
No, I loved it. No, it's great.
I answered it, Nick, but
no, you did great.
I get passionate once I start talking about our company and our brands.
Well, I have a weird follow-up question.
Okay.
It seems like, and I don't know. I don't know I don't know if you're going to answer this or tell me the answer, but you have all the data in the world on small businesses based on the orders that are coming in through FASTSIGNS. You have all the data in the world on pet owners, on what they're willing to invest and what could be next. You have all the information in the world with the salon suites to be able to look at what's next in wellness. Have you turned this into the data that you have internally is going to guide where your purchasing decisions go in the next brand?
It's interesting. Yes, we certainly look at all those variables and we know the B2B business well. We do have all that information. We are becoming more and more every day a technology company, which means you're also being driven by the data you have. So I would not say that is the first filter for looking at brands. For us, the first filter for us to add brands is we want a certain amount of EBITDA. We want scale. NerdsToGo was the first one we bought that was an emerging brand, and it's done great and we're growing it. I'm not sure that's our space going forward. We want scale. We want brands that are maybe top of mind names, even if they need to be fine-tuned a little bit and things need to be changed. But what's more interesting, even to take that question to the next level, is we are starting to look at what are the synergies. The customer for FASTSIGNS is the same customer as NerdsToGo. And how do we begin to figure out if there are ways there that there can be some synergistic things? It doesn't exist so much in My Salon Suite and Nerds, but in Camp Bow Wow. But so we are very data driven. I don't know that it is the filter for buying a brand unless we were looking at something in the same space. Yeah. Right now, that might eliminate some things for us. To your point, there are probably categories where we see that business declining as a customer in this brand, and is that really a space we want? So it might actually rule somebody more out before it would rule somebody in. But as we look at the brands that we're continuing to look at and we want to continue to buy, we are sort of saying, what else should we look at in the personal health space? Because we've done great with My Salon Suites. Are there other adjacent brands? And that does help us. Same thing with Camp Bow Wow. Now we can start to look at the pet space, and we do know what is the driver. Is it daycare? Is it grooming? Is it all these other variables? So it's the answer is a little bit in the middle, but it isn't the first. The first gate for us is A, what's for sale in the market? Right. That's the first thing. And B, do we think we can add value as a management team? And can we grow it? It's all about growth. That's the reality when you're owned by private equity.
Yeah. I think you'll continue to see synergy. I mean, the reality is everyone in My Salon Suites, they're dreaming entrepreneurs. That's why they're in there. And so they're going to need FASTSIGNS to help them market their business and build out the tools. I have
all small businesses need NerdsToGo because they need help with technology, most likely.
All connected. Right? Yeah. And I do. I mean, I've advised when we've dove deep into wellness brands, that especially membership-based brands, like if you want a built-in customer database, you pop right next to yours because you have customers that are willing to pay money for something that helps them look better or feel better. And so it's all there. Like it's all connected. And I have a feeling as time goes on, if I can drop off my dog, then I can go get my hair cut, and then I can go manage my small business. Like eventually we're going to see
maybe we'll have a Propelled Brands Plaza. It's funny you say that. When we bought Salon Suite, which was our first major acquisition, we have a franchisee in Grand Rapids, and he sent us a picture of his shopping center. He's the landlord, and his tenant was he owns a large FASTSIGNS there, and the My Salon Suite was the other tenant. I'm like, oh wow, we already got the start of a Propelled Brands Plaza.
I love it. Well, Mark, I could talk to you for hours about this. Thank you so much for sharing some of your story. I love it. I think for someone that's watching this, they're obviously buying into you. And I've said this a million times, but if someone has heard this conversation, they know that your team behaves the same way. It costs $0 to fill out a form and have a conversation whether franchising makes sense for you. And it's the easiest pathway to get some education on what it looks like. So if you watch this.
Thanks for the opportunity highlighting us. Thanks for all you do for franchising and educating and all that. I appreciate it and really enjoyed the chat.
I love it. For Mark, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.